So there's been a ton of you guys that are coming in fresh that have been asking questions like, Zox, what should I be starting out with in Tribe 9? What exactly is the best or the most optimal thing to have on my account? And I want to actually go over some of my personal picks as far as what I feel like would be great for you to start out with as a brand new player. Getting into a reroll guide is some things that you want to definitely make sure that you're doing along the way so that you're seamlessly progressing. So we are here on the title screen. What's really important to note, before you actually do this part of the process, you will need to clear the intro of the game. At that point, you can pull on the gacha. You may have done some gacha pulls at that point. And let's say you didn't get what you wanted. If you want to reset the entire thing, all you need to do is go back to the title screen. You need to go to this button here in the top left corner. And then what you want to do here is hit the delete player data. Be very careful with this because once you hit this button and confirm okay, it will permanently delete everything. It cannot be restored. You will, though, be able to skip the intro and go and basically start a new progress, which is going to allow you to go right into pulling and just kind of re-rolling. We are getting out of that screen. I'm not trying to delete my data. We're going to go ahead and log into the game here so that we can get to what you're going to essentially see first. I have both of the banner units, so I could at least talk to a couple of different points that might be something you might have to consider. And I want to be the first face to say it, especially if you are new, that this game isn't just so much about the specific unit that you have, but it's really about what your player preference is and what you enjoy the most. You can technically play with any unit in this game. So I just want to kind of reiterate that before we even jump into any of the picks that I'm going to be going over and why. This is a really unique period of time for Tribe 9 and for anyone coming in fresh because right now we have an extension of banners. The banner for Simba, for example, was supposed to have gone away, but they decided to extend it for like another almost 2 weeks. And so this is giving you ample opportunity to still be able to pull for this unit. We also have Kazuki on the Azure Streak banner, who also just got recently released. And these are two different units that do two totally different respective things. And we're going to talk about each of these units and what they bring to the table. So with Simba, out of these two, she is going to be your ranged damage dealing healer, just to simply kind of lay out what she does. Now, when we're actually looking at how easy it is to use this unit, she is, in my opinion, a lot harder or a little bit more difficult to utilize than say Kazuki. But the things that she's able to do, she has damage, she obviously has healing. She's just a really all around good, solid choice for those that are just trying to give themselves some space, maybe not the best of player with a melee unit. This actually would probably be the reroll pick for you to start out with if you are looking for more of a unit to kind of give yourself some breathing room and just kind of easing yourself into the combat system. And we're going to also talk about some of the units you're going to be getting for free anyway that you can kind of incorporate into this reroll regardless. You also are going to have on her banner specifically, you're going to have units like Gotanda and Senju. Senju is definitely not a unit I would recommend at all for a new player. He definitely requires a little bit more investment if you want to use him properly. But Gotanda here is actually really good to start out with. He's another range unit. A lot of people actually rerolled for her and him. And just the amount of damage that you can get from just those two alone is more than enough for your team. And just really seamlessly, just in terms of how they work together. Just Gotanda is just a really, really good unit. We then have the Azure banner. Now, Azure is going to be compiled with Kazuki, which if we take a look, Kazuki is going to be a unique unit in the sense that he's not only an amazing breaker, but he's also going to be offering you shield. Now, I want to clarify what shield does in this game specifically. Shield actually is going to be a damage reduction in this game. It is not something that completely mitigates all damage that you take, but it mitigates how much damage you take, right? There's a clear difference there. Now, the other thing that he's also going to be able to, offer you basically is, like I mentioned, the break value. So his break capability is really high, which is another thing that I think kind of gives him an edge. Now, when we're also looking at just how this unit operates and how he works, pretty straightforward, pretty easy to use, but you will have to micromanage his gimmick or his stack ability called memory. And utilizing that efficiently is going to be key. I definitely would say if you're trying to learn how to play a character in the game, you have to learn each character individually, but I would definitely say Kazuki is fairly easy to use. The other thing is too, is like I mentioned before, he is a melee character. So that's one of the big differences between him and Simba. He's a lot more up close. So you will have to get more comfortable with that if you decide that you want to reroll and start out with Kazuki. Now, the other thing is too, is that we also have Santoro Mita and we also have Iroha on the banner. Now, to be honest, if you're able to get dupes for Iroha, Soha, that's actually pretty good. She's an insane nuking unit in the game. And we're talking about alt nuking, right? The other thing is too, you have an amazing grouper like Santro. So this might be something that you're looking for. Really good at tanking as well, but also really good at AoE grouping units. So this is something that could be really valuable later down the line. So this is overall a really insane banner, just for the overall value, including Kazuki. Now, can you technically roll for both of these units? Again, yes, you absolutely can. Both of these units can work on a team together. Like you can go for both Kazuki and you can also go for Simba. But I would definitely say that when you're now looking at that, you have to now try to decide how you can incorporate tension cards and who you're going to build into more, right? Are you going to build more into the Twilight abilities that Simba has, or are you going to build more into Kingship, which is going to cater a lot more into what Kazuki does, right? So that's something that I definitely would say becomes a little bit more of a thought process when you're actually starting to get more of a layout of tension cards to invest in and things of that nature. But to keep it simple, I definitely would recommend going for one or the other, whether you want a unit that does melee versus a unit that does range, or if you feel like you need healing. There's a lot of different substitutes to that, right? And we're going to talk about that in a second. But real quick, I want to focus on the tension cards because I think this is the other portion to the reroll. As far as rolling the character, either or, in my opinion, can work. If not going for both, if you're lucky enough or have the tenacity, you could make that work, right? But the tension cards is going to be a whole different story. I usually get the question, should I be pulling for the tension cards? And in my opinion, I would say that out of the two tension cards, I feel like the tension card, the things to hold on to, is going to be the most valuable. And the reason why that is just simply because of the fact of what it does, right? So if we actually go and we take a look at it, what it actually is going to be granting a player is when granting a shield, grant party members Nighttime Ponder while increasing crit rate by 15% for 30 seconds. And then Nighttime Ponder is going to be, and this is at max, is going to be giving you a crit rate increase of 10% for each stack. And then with that, under the Nighttime Ponder, each time an additional attack hits, the stack will increase. Now, the thing about this is that you are going to be really honestly later down the line looking for values on your gear like crit rate, crit damage, attack, right? This is like huge for your damage dealing. And the faster your damage dealer can do their damage, the quicker you can get out of that set fight and the better you can farm that set thing that you're fighting. And this is a card that, again, even if you're not picking up Kazuki, you can incorporate a card that can grant shield that will still allow you to take effect and full effect of this card. It also is a tension 0 card. So a card being a tension 0 with a 0 tension cost, this is absolutely insane. This card, I just got to say, like, if you are that tenacious and you want to sit there and reroll to your heart's content, right now, currently, this would be a absolutely insane card. Like if you were you were able to get like Kazuki in this card, I wouldn't really try to go for unit or both units and the card. Like that's just a lot. There's somebody that's going to try it. But if you could get that on the start, I mean, to be honest, walk away, right? Now, of course, over time, if you do end up getting this card later, it's going to also be a high in value card over the other card, which, for example, what this is going to be increasing, this is add insult to injury. The value you're basically getting from this card is that it's essentially going to be based on the number of times continuous damage is dealt or recovery effect is granted on the to the same target by the operating character. Grant them the same number of stacks of Whistling Spirit, and when the maximum stacks of Whistling Spirit further increases support point by 75, and the maximum of 5 stacks for the Whistling Spirit, the based on the number of stacks increases support point by 15. After the effect is granted, cannot grant the same effect within 5 seconds. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think this not only increases your damage value with a character like Simba, but this also is going to be affecting your healing to some degree. So again, this is like more catered to just Simba herself and her being able to operate a lot more efficiently. I definitely would say that I feel like with the Kazuki tension card, that card is a little bit more universal. And the other thing is too, is that her card is an EX card. So you will need to be breaking and building up tension for you to be able to achieve this. As a newer player, that's something that like you just have to kind of work towards being able to do a lot more efficiently as you invest and learn how to use your units more than anything properly. It's just going to be much easier to get to that point. But I would definitely say out of the two, I would highly recommend Kazuki's card. instead. So that would be basically my reroll like suggestions. Now, outside of that, again, I want to just make sure that you guys are leaving with the understanding that you are going to be having some amazing units on your account, that you don't have to go out of the way of trying to convince yourself like, I just got to make them work. Like, no, these are insanely good units. So one of them being MC, which is Yo Kuronaka. So this is a character that is absolutely going to be insane to fulfill any role that you need on your comp. So whether it's more breaking, you need someone to heal, which yes, he can technically be and become a healer, or you just need another unit that's doing some solid damage. Yo is going to be the unit for you. He is really, really solid. Actually, I would argue he's one of the best units in the game. So yeah, definitely a huge asset. Another freebie unit you're going to have on your team is Roku Saigo. Saigo is actually someone that I would say is going to be a huge progression pusher, especially if you're struggling with a boss, first time clears. This guy can basically tank a nuke, okay? And I'm not even joking when I say that. One of the big things with his kit is that he has the ability to grant himself a 70% damage reduction, which is going to be massive for your progression, right? Absolutely insane for you to be able to push content and just making it that much easier. And then, of course, keeping in mind, AI in this game is also really, really good. But another unit that you're going to get, so let's say, for example, you don't have a healer, but you end up deciding that, well, man, I need some heals right now. You got Koshi that you get for free as well. Koshi is definitely an insane pure healer. The other thing is, too, is that Koshi also does offer a little bit of break damage and break potential. And there's multiple different ways that you can build these units in these games. So even Roku can be an ult nuker, right? Koshi can be a damage dealer versus just being just a pure healer. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. Just like Yo can be a breaker / damage dealer and then just become a healer, right? Like there's a lot of different things that you can do. And then lastly, one of the other units that you're going to have at your disposal is going to be Iroha. Iroha obviously is on the banner with Kazuki currently, but you do get a base copy of her for free. And again, like I mentioned before, her nuke potential is just absolutely insane. She hits astronomical numbers, and a lot of players starting out, even into endgame, still use her, right? She's absolutely insane. And this is what I mean. Just because a character is a lower rarity does not mean that they don't work in Tribe 9. Tribe 9 has a pretty balanced roster, and there's only a couple of units in the game that just don't work that well on AI. But even then, if you actually build into those gimmicks or into those characters' weaknesses, they actually can work just fine, right? Now, outside of that, the last thing that I want to mention is obviously the tension cards that you're going to have. One of the ones that I always, and I've been like living behind recommending this card, is Full Party. One of the first tension cards you get, basically going to be giving you an increase of crit rate and defense point. But the thing is that when you have a card that is allowing you to grant unity, it will multiply this effect by 2. Okay, so it doubles it. Now, a card that you definitely are going to want to keep an eye out for in your reroll process is a card called Strike Zone, because Strike Zone is going to be granting you unity. And so in order for you to use an effect, there's usually a grant or a ability start card that gives you the effect that then activates the other cards, right? So whether you're doing something with Kingship or with Attention, or if you're using Charm, there's something that's going to be an activating card, and then there's cards that are activated off of that activation, right? So just to kind of give you a little bit of an explanation there, definitely a really, really good card that you're going to get from the very beginning. Also, you're going to be starting out with the Ferocity, which is pretty huge. Ferocity is going to be giving you that extra revive. A lot of people still use this, right? That extra revive just kind of can be clutch, means that you can finish a fight. You don't have to redo it, especially climbing in Fractal Vice. You don't have to climb all the way back up, etc., right? Huge, huge card. Another card that I definitely will say is going to be pretty nice that you actually get for free. And this is for those that are still like, again, going through the motions with the training wheels, is actually the Ace Vision. So the Ace Vision is going to basically be when you execute a perfect evasion, the flow of time surrounding the area will completely slow for X amount of time. Now, the more that you invest this, you can actually increase the window of time that this gives you, which can give you a little bit of a breather. And these are definitely some cards that I would say you don't got to go too crazy with investing, or at least this card. But it still is something that if you find like this is a card you actually really like, or it's working into a build with some other units you like, then that would definitely be huge, right? Now, outside of that, I also want to give some honorable mentions as far as the units that you can pull from standards. So these also can be incorporated in your reroll if you want to. These are some of the damage dealers that exist within the game. And let's actually go to the archive. You're ultimately going to be working your way to getting one of these units at some point. And I didn't really incorporate these units necessarily just because they're standard banner. In the beginning of the game, I think it was pretty fair to like say like, oh, just pull standard banner. But over the time, and really what's going to be the requirement at this point is that once you go through the initial start, you're going to have to start accumulating resources like your standard synchro medals and stuff like that. And then you're going to be working towards a guaranteed ticket, right? And so I just definitely want to mention that. Some of the characters that are absolutely going to be insane for damage, obviously you have Jugo. She is what we call a tick damage dealer. So she requires a stack proc. When that stack is fully built up with her luminous crystal, then she is able to ult. She has a one phase tension gauge ulting unit. Yes, she absolutely can hit a ton of like things with super insane damage. She is just ridiculous. Then you also have, of course, who I would argue is actually better, just simply because she can do it a little bit quicker. I feel like she's a little bit harder to use, but if you are able to learn this character, Inoki is actually going to be honestly the fastest clearing character in the game damage wise. She is just absolutely insane if you put her in the right composition. So this is a standard unit that you definitely can look forward to getting. That's going to be pretty huge to add to your arsenal. And she does insane damage. I think right now there's no characters touching Inoki or Miyu in terms of pure damage output. They are the highest damage dealers in the game. So getting one of these two units also, if you get lucky and you see these also roll out in a roll, like say you get a double roll or a triple roll, which people do get, these are definitely some units that you want to hold on to. You also have units like Q, for example, who's going to be exceptionally great at breaking. And I wanted to mention him simply because of the fact that one of his best pairings is actually Kazuki. So if you actually get Kazuki and Q together, this actually could be quite nice depending on what you're trying to aim for and your playstyle preference. They are definitely more like melee oriented units, but again, the layering and the protection that you need, you're able to actually get some of that from Kazuki with the shield damage reduction that he's able to give. So another really insane pairing there. And then of course we have some honorable mentions, which I want to mention as well, is EG. EG's great, one of the best supports in the game. EG is also another unit that if you get them, definitely something you want to hold on to or maybe even use. Technically a tank-esque unit that's able to aggro, also buffing crit rate, also buffing primary and secondary damage, which is pretty huge. And then of course, the big thing about this character is that he can lower tension costs and also help you restore tension. Right? So that's going to be huge when you're talking about utilizing your ults and doing things of that nature. He's pretty nasty for that. Then of course, you also have units like Jiu, who I could not forget to mention here because Jiu actually has a defense shred ability. And I think it's about 25% if I remember correctly, when it's actually invested. This is something that can be pretty nasty for allowing your damage dealers to deal and do more damage. And he's not a slob himself. He actually can do a lot of damage himself, not as much as obviously Miyu or Inoki, but he's definitely up there. So again, as you can see, we're going through just about almost the whole roster, and a lot of these units have some sort of value, even if it's not, being the highest damage dealer or having the most support. They still do something unique that makes them really hard to replace unless, we get to the point where they release something else. So that's basically that, guys. Again, there's a lot of different variations of this information. A lot of people will have different suggestions, but the crazy thing is that no matter what you really suggest, it all kind of works. There's been no one really playing the exact same format in this game. And so that's the beauty of this game is you really honestly at the end of the day can play however you want. But those are just some of my recommendations that I want to leave you guys with. Hopefully this video was able to help and give you a little bit more insight. Definitely make sure that you guys join the Discord community, man. Dude, we are actually almost at 1,000 people at the recording of this video. It's absolutely insane that the community has grown this fast in about a 4-week period. I appreciate all of you guys that have been supporting the content and the channel. But that's basically going to be that with this one. Everyone, stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.